I'm not even attracted to George anymore. He's like a brother I pay the bills with. That one line. If she'd stabbed me in the chest with a steak knife sitting 5 inches from her hand, it would have hurt less. I was standing by the coat rack in the hallway, 10 feet from the dining room. I had just hung up Denise's faux fur jacket and reached for Carl's rain-damp windbreaker when I heard Chloe's voice slurred just enough to be dangerous. There was a pause in the chatter before it, the kind of lull where the universe holds its breath, just long enough to let truth slip out like a blade. The laughter that followed was the kind that doesn't bounce off walls. It seeps into drywall and lingers for years. Denise's giggle, Carl's snort, even that new girl, Jenna, who Chloe had sworn she barely liked, chimed in with a wine-wet chuckle like it was the funniest thing she'd ever heard. I could practically hear Chloe grinning, swirling her overpriced Pinot like she'd just dropped the punchline of a stand-up special. Who cares? He's in the other room. Yeah, it was. And maybe it was the way she said it. Casual, dismissive, like I wasn't a person anymore. Just a line item on her utility bill. Or maybe it was the timing. Her best friend's birthday posted in our house, using my handmade walnut dining table that took me 3 months to build. The one she always said gave us character like something out of an Architectural Digest spread. I had stained that thing in the garage while she was texting God knows who on the patio with a glass of rose and a playlist called Sunday Vibes blasting through our backyard speakers. But that night, under the dim glow of the Edison bulb she insisted we install, Chloe decided to perform. I walked back into that room like nothing had happened. I even smiled. The kind of smile I hadn't worn since my father's funeral. The tight, rubber one that pulls at your cheeks but never touches your eyes. I handed Carl his jacket and clapped his shoulder. Better get moving before the storm hits. He nodded. I was just a little too wide, like he suspected I'd heard something. He was always the smart one. Chloe didn't even look at me. She was pouring another drink, her laugh trailing off into a hiccup as she leaned into Jenna and whispered something I didn't catch, but saw reflected in Jenna's raised brow, an awkward grin. No apology, no guilt, no awareness, just wine, fake lashes, and the vague scent of betrayal. Wrapped in perfume I bought her for our anniversary last year. I waited until everyone left, played the host, topped off wine glasses, handed out umbrellas. Chloe kissed cheeks and laughed like nothing in the world could touch her. She even winked at me once. Winked like I was her partner in crime, like I hadn't just watched her slowly gut me with a single drunken sentence. When the door closed behind Denise, the last to leave, Chloe turned barefoot, drunk and radiant in that way. Only people with no consequences ever are. We should do this more often, she said, stretching like a cat as she plopped down on the couch. God, I'm exhausted. I looked at her for a long moment. She didn't even notice. That's when I knew not that she didn't love me. I'd known that for years, but that she didn't see me anymore. I wasn't George, the man who built her bookshelves, fixed her laptop, rewired the garage so she could have a yoga studio. I was the background, the utility, the soundproof foam padding under her social life. A safe placeholder she could perform her sparkle over, and I'd let it happen. I walked upstairs. She didn't follow. Sat in my study. She didn't knock. Pulled out the drawer where I kept the external drive. The one with copies of contracts, old passwords, account backups, contingency folders. I labeled with stupid names like rainy day _V2. It wasn't anger. It wasn't even heartbreak. It was clarity. Cold. Sober. Absolute. At 2:03 a.m., I opened a private browser tab and booked a room at a motel on the other side of the city. One with no cameras, no key cards, just keys. Before I left, I walked back to our bedroom. She was asleep, snoring gently, one arm thrown over the pillow where I used to sleep before she made me start using the guest bed for my back. I looked at her for a while, tried to find the girl I once loved, the woman who used to draw blueprints with me on napkins at diners. She was somewhere in there, but buried under filters, wine, and curated sarcasm. I didn't kiss her goodbye, didn't leave a note. I just took my car and drove. I didn't take my toothbrush. Didn't grab a change of socks. Didn't even bring my phone. Charger. That should tell you everything. At 2:17 a.m., I sat in the same creaky desk chair. Chloe used to mock your grandpa called. He wants his furniture back and watched the progress bar crawl across the screen as I transferred every file that mattered from my encrypted flash drive to a cloud server she didn't know existed. Years of careful compartmentalization. Every deed, every tax filing, every pass which she'd forgotten and asked me to just handle. All going somewhere she could never reach. I was methodical, detached, like I was packing up a job site, not a life. I removed her access to my password manager, revoked her devices from the shared media accounts, and deleted the emergency contacts from the car insurance portal. She never noticed I'd added two-factor authentication months ago. The house was quiet. No wind. No creaks. Just the soft hum of the refrigerator and the occasional snore echoing from upstairs, punctuated by a drunken sigh that sounded almost smug. There was one moment, brief, ridiculous, where I stood by the front door and thought maybe I should write her a note. But what would I say? Dear Chloe, I heard you tell our friends I'm a glorified roommate, and while I appreciate the performance, I've decided to exit stage left. No, she didn't deserve a monologue. I left the key on a hallway table next to the hydrangeas in a candle she claimed tied the room together. It didn't. It smelled like funeral homes and denial. I didn't bother turning off the lights. The driveway gravel crunched under my tires as I reversed out. Headlights off. I didn't want to wake the neighbors or her. Let her sleep. I thought, she'll need it. The motel was 28 miles east, a 2-star place with peeling paint, a flickering sign that read land or night in, because the second I had burned out and a night clerk who looked like he hadn't slept since Reagan was president. Perfect. I didn't use my name. Paid cash. Room 11. The smell hit me first, old varnish. What concrete and something like lemon cleaner waging war against mildew. But I didn't care. The mattress was firm. The air was cold. The rain ticked on the window like a lullaby for men who just gave up pretending. I lay there in a shirt I'd worn since morning. Jeans still on. Arms behind my head. The ceiling had a crack that ran in a perfect diagonal from one corner to the light fixture. I stared at it for a while, tracing it with my eyes like it might spell something if I looked long enough. And then, for the first time in years, I slept. No insomnia. No midnight anxiety spirals about her credit card bills or what weird thing she'd post on Instagram the next morning to get a rise out of someone she used to date. No wondering if I was boring or just old. I slept like the man I used to be back before I traded silence for survival. Back before I let someone reduce me to background noise in my own damn house. Chloe was probably still snoring, still curled up in the expensive sheets I bought on a trip she didn't want to take. Dreaming, maybe, about how she'd entertain next. Or who. She'd wake up around 10. Maybe later. She always did after a bender. At first, she'd think I went for coffee. Then maybe a walk. Then, maybe if I was lucky, a flicker of something deeper. But by then, her world would already be slipping. Because I wasn't just gone. I had already started the avalanche. Chloe woke up to sunlight, bleeding through the blackout curtains, mouth dry, head pounding like a wardrobe. Her mascara had half melted onto the pillowcase, and the taste of Pinot and smugness still lingered on her tongue. George wasn't next to her. That wasn't unusual. He was always up early, even on Sundays, walking the neighborhood trail or sketching god-awful cabin designs in his study. She always teased him about it, said he had the sleep habits of a monk and the fashion sense of one, too. So, she stretched, groaned, and reached for her phone to text him to grab croissants from that overpriced bakery he pretended to hate. No notification, no text, no shared calendar pings. Strange. She tried refreshing the app. Nothing. That's weird. She mumbled, sitting up, rubbing her temple like it might jog something into place. She padded downstairs barefoot, calling out with mock cheer. George, you alive? Silence. The living room still smelled faintly of red wine and whatever perfume Jenna had doused herself in last night. The wine glasses were gone, cleaned and drying neatly on the rack. Typical George couldn't sleep without putting everything back in order. She checked the driveway through the window. His car was gone. Okay, maybe he ran out early. But then she noticed something subtle, but jarring in the way only a missing rhythm feels. Often a familiar song. The charger was gone, not just the one by the nightstand. The backup, one from the kitchen drawer, vanished. And when she opened her laptop to check the week's schedule on their shared calendar, it prompted her for a login, then told her the calendar had been discontinued. Discontinued? The hell does that mean? She blinked hard like maybe the wine still hadn't cleared from her bloodstream. Texted him. No reply. Sent another one. More annoyed this time. Still nothing. Her heart started to tap faster now. Not full panic yet, but a creeping unease. She called his phone. It went straight to voicemail. She dialed again. This time his brother Mark, the family's unofficial fixer who always showed up with bourbon and bad jokes during their rough patches. Hey Mark, have you heard from George? I think he forgot to plug his phone in. Or something. There was a pause. Too long. Huh. Chloe, I haven't talked to George in over a week. What? That can't be right. He was here last night. Another pause. Then Mark's voice shifted. Firmer. Cautious. He told me he was taking some space. That was 5 days ago. Figured he was staying with you again. That's when her stomach flipped. Not the slow roll of a hangover, but the icy punch of something cracking underneath your feet. She hung up without saying goodbye, walked into the study, and opened the drawer where George kept his backup phone. The one he said was, just in case, gone. She opened the closet. His hiking boots, gone. Rain jacket, gone. That ugly maroon pullover she always told him to throw out, gone. She finally sat down at the dining table. The same one she joked over just hours ago, where she treated her husband like a punchline in her life, like a talk show. She sat exactly where Denise had been, laughing at her joke, and looked around, like she was seeing the room for the first time. It was too clean, too staged, like a showroom version of her life. All the props were still there, but the man who built the stage had left. Her fingers trembled as she opened her email. She typed in George's address. Hit send. Hey, where are you? Can we talk? The email bounced. Account deleted. And that's when panic wasn't a whisper anymore. It screamed. At exactly 11:07 a.m., her laptop pinged. Not a text, not an email, a Slack notification. You've been removed from his workspace. Chloe stared at it like it was written in Sanskrit. She blinked twice, refreshed the page, clicked around like maybe she'd accidentally logged into the wrong account. But no, her name, her photo, her bio gone, replaced by a bland placeholder profile, some kind of glitch. She muttered, nerves twitching night, just a glitch. But then she opened the admin dashboard of the client portal George had set up for her freelance branding firm, a sleek little boutique operation he built in their garage before she ever had a client to fill it. Back then, it was all coffee meetings and Canva templates. Now it was 5 figures a month, 3 assistants, and 2 retainer contracts she bragged about at dinner parties. Except now, she couldn't log in. Access denied. She grabbed her phone with shaking hands and called her assistant, Natalie, the bright-eyed marketing grad she used to make fetch her lattes and clean up her Canva brainstorms. Natalie, hey, I'm locked out of everything. What's going on? Did you do a system update without telling me? There was a pause, not nervous, just rehearsed. Oh, George said you'd be unavailable this week. He gave me admin rights last night. What? Unavailable? I didn't approve that. I know, but he said it was a legal thing that I should just make sure client communication keeps running smoothly. The contracts are all under his name. So Chloe cut her off his name. Why the hell would anything be under his? But she stopped herself. Because of course it was George had been the one who set up the LLC. She'd laughed about it at the time, called it George's vanity project, and told her friends he was playing CEO. But now her calendar, her payment processors, her entire damn career was funneled through an infrastructure built by a man she reduced to background noise. And she had no keys to the kingdom. She hung up on Natalie without saying another word. Open her email, nothing from clients. She checked the company Instagram account. The bio had changed. Creative Branding Solutions. Contact Natalie at cleartide.co. Cleartide. That was George's old design concept. A fake name he once brainstormed for an art collective he never had time to start. She called it pretentious and weird. Now it was her replacement. She stood knocking over her coffee, heart jackhammering. She tried to log into the billing portal, locked out client project folders on Dropbox gone. She opened her saved messages. One by one, her client threads were empty, replaced by red receipts and a sea of silence. She ran to the kitchen, grabbed the tablet he never used. Hope he'd forgotten to sign out. He hadn't. There was nothing left. All her files his, all her systems his. Even her email. Signature was now a dead link. She leaned against the counter, chest heaving. The granite felt cold. Through her silk robe. And that's when she saw it. On the kitchen whiteboard they hadn't used in months. In George's careful, serif handwriting. Control is invisible. Until it's gone. Her knees buckled. It wasn't a glitch. It wasn't a mistake. It was precision. And it had already started. By the time Chloe pulled into the bank's parking lot, her nails were bitten down to raw half. Moons and the steering wheel had a permanent indentation from her white-knuckle grip. Her sunglasses barely masked the twitch in her left eye. And she hadn't showered. Still in the same wine-stained sweater. Dressed from the night before. The hem curled where she'd stepped on it in the driveway. She didn't care. She marched past the lobby fountain, heels clacking too loud on the tile. The receptionist smiled bright, polite, oblivious. I need access to our safety deposit box. It's under George and Chloe Heller, she said, flashing her ID like it was still supposed to. Means something. The young teller, barely out of college, by the look of him, tapped at his terminal and paused. I'm sorry, ma'am. You've been removed as an authorized user. Chloe blinked. What? He looked apologetic in that soft, corporate way that means absolutely nothing. It says here your name was officially removed from access last Thursday. Do you have a court order or alternate documentation removed? I own that box. It's a joint account. He gave a measured smile. Actually, it's listed under Heller Development Group, LLC. Mr. Heller is the sole managing partner. You are not on the business license. The room tilted. It took everything she had not to lose it right there in front of the fake ficus and laminated interest rate flyers. That damn box had held the skeletons. Tax archives, investment docs, backups of their house deed, and George's original business plans, which she used to call his nerdy treasure chest. Years ago, she tossed the keys into a dish and told him, if the house burns down, you can rebuild from that box. And he had just not with her. She took a breath sharp enough to cut glass. I want to see the contents. Now, I'm afraid that's not possible without his written consent. The clerk said, tone dipping into nervous territory. Mr. Heller was in here last week with a notary. Everything's already been refiled. She stood there frozen, fists clenched so tighter, rings dug into the meat of her fingers. Is there anything else I can help you with? The clerk added, clearly eager to pass her off to a manager. Chloe didn't answer. She walked out, and in the reflection of the glass door, she saw herself clearly for the first time. Disheveled, alone, locked out of a life she didn't realize she never owned. She sat in the driver's seat for 15 minutes. Engine off, car slowly heating like a greenhouse. It wasn't just the files. George had also moved the deed to their lake cabin into the LLC. She remembered scoffing when he filed the paperwork. Last fall, just another shell game for your taxes. Babe, she had joked. He'd said nothing, just smiled the way he always did when she made herself feel clever at his expense. But now she saw it. Every form, every notarized signature, every just a little asset reallocation. For Q4, none of it had been casual. It had been surgical. And Chloe? She hadn't just lost her marriage. She'd lost the paper trail of her entire foundation. She wasn't locked out of George's life. She was locked out of her own. The subject line hit her inbox like a slap. Campaign move boards? Was this meant for me? Chloe stared at it for a full minute before clicking. The sender was Francine Roach, her oldest client. Loyal since day one. Paid late. asked too many questions, still insisted on 15-minute Zoom calls, just to see faces. But she'd stuck around when no one else did. Even recommended Chloe to her sister's winery in Santa Barbara. Inside the email was a single line. I'm confused. This thread you sent about our campaign was meant for me? Below it, hell itself? Forwarded. From Chloe's own email address. Dated 2 years ago. The subject line, Jesus Francine again, faced with rolling eyes. The body. She's like a time capsule from 2009. Still wants sparkles and empowerment buzzwords. I swear if she says the word authentic one more time, I'll shove her brand guide into a blender. Cheap, needy, and 2 clients away from being fired. I only keep her because she pays in full and doesn't know what good design actually costs. Chloe's chest went ice cold. She hadn't written that recently. It was old. A vending email she'd sent to Kendra, her college friend who used to freelance retouching for her. It was buried in a long thread about impossible clients, TikTok trends, and whether brand loyalty even mattered anymore. It was supposed to be private. She didn't even think she still had that email. And yet there it was, forwarded from her own address. She checked the headers. The forwarding chain was scrubbed. No visible IPs. No device metadata. Just her name. She called Francine immediately. Voicemail. Then her second oldest client, Susan, the one with the vegan candle line. Blocked. A cold sweat broke across her back as she opened her inbox fully. One by one, responses started flooding in. Well, never expected this from you. Unprofessional doesn't even cover it. Consider this the end of our relationship. She scrambled to send apologies, but the damage was instantaneous. By 4:30 p.m., she'd been removed from 4 Slack groups, 2 client portals, and her scheduling app had 4 cancellations. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just stood there, stunned as her digital reputation, the one she'd cultivated with #polished grace, and wine-fueled networking burned. And underneath the panic, one bitter taste curled in her mouth. She knew who did it. George. She couldn't prove it. He'd never leave fingerprints. He was too careful, too calm. She could already hear his voice if she ever confronted him. You really think I'd stoop to that? With just enough sincerity to make anyone else doubt her. But she remembered how he used to help her reconcile receipts. How she gave him full access to her accounts because he's better with numbers. How he once warned her, offhandedly, you might want to clean out your sent folder. It's a graveyard in there. She hadn't listened. Why would she? She was the face, the charm, the talent. He was just the back end, the boring part. But now the back end was swallowing her whole. She stared at her screen, email after email lighting up with flames. Her entire brand image collapsing under the weight of her own arrogance. It didn't matter how long ago she wrote it. It didn't matter if she was venting or joking or just tired after a long week. It was her name on it. And George? He didn't raise his voice. He didn't post screenshots. He didn't shame her publicly. He simply opened the vault and let her own words do the work. She was watching her life implode. And the most terrifying part? It was only Monday. By Friday morning, the group chat was a ghost town. The same chat that once exploded with daily memes, skincare gossip, and obnoxiously filtered brunch selfies had gone dead. No. Good morning. Queen's hot beverage kiss mark. No jokes about Jenna's dating disasters. No passive-aggressive side jabs about who wore white to a birthday dinner. Just silence. Chloe scrolled up, searching for signs of life. Tuesday had one lone gift from Kendra. A squirrel holding a martini. No responses. Wednesday, total blackout. Thursday, Jenna posted a meme about protecting your peace. And nobody even reacted. It hung there like a corpse at a cocktail party. By Friday noon, the chat was renamed from Wine Coven Wineglass to just Group. By 1 p.m., it was gone altogether. She tried texting Denise directly. Hey babe, are we still on for Mark's next week? No response. She checked Instagram. Denise's account. Still active. But Chloe wasn't following it anymore. Or rather, Denise wasn't following her. Same with Kendra. Same with Jenna. Same with all of them. The girls she'd toasted with, overshared with, vacationed and illumined with. The ones who knew every fight she'd had with George, every complaint she'd whispered while sipping from stemless glasses under twinkling patio lights. They'd ghosted her, one by one. She refreshed her feed. Her followers had dropped by 28, then 34, then 41. A message came through from an unknown number, a local 3-3 area code. She opened it, hoping maybe someone finally had the decency to explain. You know, some of us like George, what you said wasn't cool. No name, no punctuation, just that. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She started to type. I was drunk. It was a joke. You know how I am. But she stopped, deleted it. Instead, she just sent back a single red heart emoji. Then she put the phone down and cried into her hands. Ugly, shaking, full-body sobs. The kind you can't Instagram. The kind that ruins your makeup and your self-image in the same breath. Because it wasn't just the loss of her marriage now. It wasn't just the work she'd built or the client she'd charmed or the reputation George had disassembled like a quiet bomb technician. It was her tribe, her curated, filtered brunch drunk tribe. The women she always counted on to validate her snark, to clap back in her defense, to tell her she was right even when she was awful. They were gone to because deep down they knew they always had they saw what she did to George. Even if they laughed along at the time. Even if they joined in with the jokes, the jabs, the stories that painted him as the quiet bore she carried on her back like some noble martyr. But when it came time to pick a side, they didn't pick her. They vanished. And for the first time in her adult life, Chloe felt what it meant to truly be alone. Not alone like a spa weekend or a wine break from people. Alone like standing in a crater, dust still falling, and realizing you were the one who triggered the explosion. Her phone sat beside her silent. No pinks, no girls, just echoes. And Chloe knew she hadn't just lost George. She'd lost the audience too. She was on her second glass of something cheap and desperate, boxed wine half. Flat when a knock came. Not loud, not frantic, just firm. She glanced out the window, assuming it was another courier with a brand return or some influencer junk she'd forgotten she ordered. Instead, it was a man and a windbreaker holding a beige envelope like it was radioactive. His expression was unreadable, professional, bored. Chloe Heller. She nodded, wine glass still in hand. You've been served. He turned and walked away before she could ask a single question. Inside the envelope, no letterhead, no friendly cover page, no polite legalese. Just raw documentation. Divorce in bold, cold Helvetica, filed 3 days prior, filed before she even knew he was gone. The first few pages were standard, legal boilerplate, asset disclosures, custody, non-applicable, no children, not even a dog. Then came the financial breakdown. Brutal, precise. Every joint account already frozen. Every vehicle retitled the Lake Cabin. Claimed by Heller Development Group. Their main residence, slated for sale, split 70-30 THS. For the clause, she drunkenly agreed to sign years ago when George handled the estate planning. Because she couldn't be bothered. She laughed then. Whatever, babe, you're the architect. Build me a happy ending. He had, just not with her in it. She flipped another page and froze. Evidence. That was the header. What followed was an accusation. It was documentation. Audio files. Transcribed and annotated. Chloe at a party. I married a spreadsheet with a pulse. Chloe to her friends on Zoom. He's like my dad. If my dad did nothing fun and stare at floor. Plans for intimacy. Chloe during a dinner at the lake. Sometimes I wish I had married Trevor. At least he was hot and didn't correct my grammar. Each entry dated. Each one followed by metadata. Screenshots came next. Text threads. Group chats. Even private DMs with her college roommate, where she joked about how George's architect money bought her breast implants. And beneath it all, in crisp, lawyer-perfect print, this isn't about what you said when drunk. It's about everything you said when sober. Chloe stared at the paper as if it might morph into something. Kinder if she blinked hard enough. But it didn't. George hadn't filed in anger. He filed in preparation. This wasn't a tantrum. It was a strategy. She hadn't just been dropped. She'd been studied. And now was her words. Her cruelty. Her snide little jokes. Her constant death by a thousand jabs that were being used like scalpels against her. No court needed. No judge. No jury. Just a welcome packet from the lawyer's office of the man she once mocked as too timid to ever leave. She set the papers down. The wine didn't taste like anything anymore. By Saturday morning, Chloe had crossed the line from stunned to frantic. She hadn't slept. The documents still sat spread across the kitchen island like a crime scene. Pages wrinkled, wine-stained, one of them torn in half in a moment of shaking rage that left her with a small cut on her thumb and a matching streak of blood across the corner of Exhibit G. She hadn't changed clothes. In 2 days, her inbox was a wasteland. Her clients were silent. And her name, her brand, was radioactive. No one was returning messages, not even with the fake politeness she used to hate. So she did what desperate people do. She tried going through his people. She called his sister, Beth, straight to voicemail. She called again, blocked. She tried his accountant, Jeremy, the awkward man with the slow drawl and the scratchy blazer who always chuckled nervously around her and brought pie to every meeting. Nothing. Even George's old college friend, Micah, the guy Chloe used to flirt with just to see if George would get jealous. Voicemail. Again. 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 Nothing. Even people she thought were hers stopped replying. A shared realtor, their former contractor, the couple from their neighborhood wine night. Everyone had gone cold like a coordinated act of polite excommunication. She sat in the hallway, phone still pressed to her ear, knees drawn up to her chest like a teenager locked out of a party. No sound, just that endless style tone that echoed her irrelevance. And then a bust, a text, no contact name, no number, just, stop looking for me in the ruins. I didn't build them. 10 words, 10 quiet, final, lethal words. She stared at the screen for a full hour, motionless, me zeeking on the tile, her spine pressed against the same wall George once leaned on as he watched her play hostess to their friends with a forced smile and silent grace. And now the man she thought was too gentle to fight back, too dull to defend himself, had sent a message so devastating, so brutally composed. It cut deeper than anything she ever shouted in his face, because it was true. He didn't destroy your life. He just left it exposed. He hadn't built the ruins. She had, through every insult passed as humor, every backhanded compliment, every whisper jabbed her friends when he left the room. Every time she rolled her eyes, when he mentioned a new project, or corrected her spelling, or asked if they could talk instead of perform, she whispered to the empty hallway to no one. I didn't think he'd actually go, but he had, quietly, completely, and the ruins he left behind. They weren't punishment. They were a mirror. The lake cabin hadn't changed. Same old cedar planks. Same porch swing that squeaked with each gust of wind. Same smell of pine and earth that used to wrap around them like a blanket when things were still whole. Chloe stood on the porch for several long minutes before knocking. Then tried the knob. It wasn't locked. That surprised her more than anything. She stepped inside, cautiously, like someone walking into a memory. The air smelled clean, too clean. The wood floors had been swept. The fireplace was freshly ashless. On the side table by the window, a small vase of white tulips sat and filtered sunlight arranged just so. Her favorite flower, back when that had meant something. On the dining table, 2 coffee mugs, one half full. On the couch, George's old wool coat, folded perfectly, draped across the armrest like a memory he didn't want to forget, but wouldn't wear again either. And then she saw him, standing by the fire, calm, still, as if he had been waiting not for her, but for something else to end. He looked thinner, older, not broken, just quieter than silence. Her throat caught. She took one shaky step forward, eyes already glassing over. The ACH in her chest bloomed, like a bruise. George, she said, her voice low, cracked. Can we talk? He didn't speak, not even a twitch of the mouth. Instead, he slowly turned toward the hallway and pointed to the door. Chloe blinked, confused, then heard the soft click of heels. A woman stepped out, late 40s, crisp suit, no makeup, binder in hand. Not young, not romantic, just official. Chloe's breath hitched. Who is it? She's here to witness, George said, his voice like sand across glass. First words he'd spoken to her in weeks. Maybe the last she'd ever hear from him. Chloe turned toward the woman. She recognized her. George's lawyer. The one from the packet. The one who'd made everything real. No, you don't need her here. I didn't come to talk about the papers. I came to talk about us. About what happened. But George didn't move. Didn't blink. He just kept his eyes on the fire. On something far beyond her reach. There's no us, Chloe. You can't mean that. I didn't mean it for 10 years. Those words hit harder than the papers. Harder than the inbox, implosion, or the empty safety deposit box. He wasn't angry. He wasn't gloating. He was simply done. She tried again. A weak laugh. George, come on. We were us. We were something. He finally looked. At her. No. You were you. I was a mirror. Chloe felt herself sway like the room had tilted. You don't just walk away from everything. He tilted his head slightly. You didn't think I'd go. You thought I'd wait. Like always. Silence. He gestured to the coffee table. A pin. A single. Page left inside. The final release. No more division of assets. No spousal support. No further communication needed beyond legal closures. She looked at it. Then back at him. You're really doing this. I already did. But he raised one hand. Gentle. Firm. And for a moment, she saw it. Not the George she'd mocked. Not the dull man with quiet shoes and vanilla preferences. She saw the man who'd once watched her dance barefoot in this cabin, holding a bottle of cheap red wine and singing off-key. The man who'd built her a future and let her rewrite the script until she erased him entirely. And now he was just here to confirm what she'd already buried under sarcasm and selfies. That it was over. Utterly. Finally, he turned back to the fire. Chloe looked around the cabin at the folded coat, the silent lawyer, the still coffee muck, and the weight of it all pressed in her chest like a sealed tomb. She signed, left the pin on the table, and walked toward the door. Just before stepping outside, she turned back. George. He didn't look. I didn't think you'd actually go. He didn't answer, because he already had. And as she stepped into the cold light of the afternoon, the wind catching her coat like a curtain falling on a final scene, she understood. The last door that closed wasn't his. It was the one in her own mind, and it would never open again. Thank you for taking the time to read this story. If you enjoyed it, subscribe, like, and share in the comments. Remember, history is a witness to the past, a light of truth, a living memory, a teacher of life, a messenger of antiquity, and see you soon.